This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It looks, well, let's see. I said I don't know who Linda is. Should we do introductions?
Okay, I'll go first. I'm Gail Henriksen, Community Development Director.
Victoria Sage, Community Development Planner.
We can't hear you, Tally. That's Tally Spiller. She's a Citizen Advisory Council member.
This is Cheryl Johnson, Citizen Advisory Council.
And this is Kelly Huckestein, Citizen Advisory Committee member.
Do Jed or Linda want to introduce themselves? If you do later on, feel free to pop in. Oh, hi, Jed. Did you just unmute yourself?
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's Jed Arnold. I'm with Hampton Lumber. I have my son here with me again, so he's being a little noisy.
Cool. Thank you for joining us. Okay. Does anybody know who Linda is? Okay, well, moving right along then, we can review the meeting summary from your July 14th meeting. I just read through that myself since I was not at that meeting. It sounds like there were a lot of questions and like people were looking for more information and resources to learn more about all of the different natural resources that are covered in this goal. Does anybody else want to say anything about the meeting, or were there any adjustments to the meeting notes?
Yes, this is Gail. At the very beginning of the meeting summary, I had noted that Tally, who opened the meeting, was the Community Development Director, so I'll correct that and send out a revised copy.
Okay.
I thought the minutes were great, and I especially appreciated, Gail, that whenever we had questions that you referred to them in the minutes and then gave us a link where we could go to. Thank you.
You're welcome, Cheryl.
Okay, next is public comment and input. And then we are going to review Goal 5 topics, wetlands and riparian corridors. So I'm not sure what the best way is to attack this. I'm grabbing my, should we look at like the goals and policies that are already there? Or does anybody have anything they want to say right off the get-go about it?
Jim, this is Cheryl. I was not able to go to the workshop, and I'm wondering if anybody else did, and if you wanted to talk about that just for a minute.
Yeah, I wasn't able to go either, so I'd love to hear about it as well, if anyone did.
Yeah, so this is Gail, and the workshop was very good. It was Amanda Putton from DLCD. She's the natural resources specialist, and she spoke for the first hour about primarily wetlands and riparian corridors and what is controlled by state statute, what DSL, Department of State Lands, has oversight over, how if the local jurisdiction adopts a local wetland inventory, then they have the ability to apply additional protections to wetlands within that inventoried area. Then she spent probably not quite the second half of the program, discussing mineral rights in Dogami. And the slides and the presentation are all on the county's website, so I'll make sure that link goes out, and I can bring up the slides right now if anybody really wants to look at them.
Okay.
Or, actually, I take it back. She hasn't sent me the slides yet, but I do have the video. The video is posted. Sorry.
If we just had the link to them, Gail, that would be great. Thank you.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
I agree. Okay. I'm looking at the large paper printout that you sent us, Gail, and the policies that are in here under wetlands. And I'll just read them just so everybody knows what they are. The first one is like a normal, just generic, the county will provide identified significant freshwater wetlands for which no conflicting uses have been identified from incompatible uses, which seems good. I would agree with that one. And then there's two other like real specific policies. Policy 2 is a 10-acre site within wetland. Site 6 shall be provided for gravel extraction. And you have a staff note here, is Site 6 now under the control of the Nature Conservancy? I wonder if we know anything about that, or like if you know what that site is.
Yeah, we do. So that site is down just south of the mill ponds on the south side of Seaside, and portions of the wetland are under the control of the North Coast Land Conservancy, but there are still pockets of private ownership as well. Let me show you that site. So that would be down in this area here. This is Site 6.
Mm-hmm. And is gravel extraction still allowed there, or like is that a thing we should need to keep in our goals?
I was working on checking the zoning and I got sidetracked. So let's see here. Yeah, but if the zoning still allows for gravel extraction, then that would be something that you would want to keep in the plan.
Okay.
I have a question. Can people hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, great. I guess I had thought that the point of the comprehensive plan was to be more like a broad outline and not to be like super specific about things, you know, like direct policies on this exact plot of land. Is that, I mean, is that accurate, I guess, or are we wanting to be this granular?
So you are not the first committee to ask that question, and so this is the response that I would put out, is that when the plan was drafted, specific policies, you'll see that there's some very broad policies, a lot of broad policies in the plan that are generic to the entire county. Sometimes in order to address existing development, they had to put in very specific language, or if they were aware of things that were coming in that they wanted to address at that time 40 years ago, there was specific language. You'll see policy, wetland policy number 3 is very detailed and specific, and it's literally centered around the site up here by Driscoll Slough. And that was primarily, I would suspect, put in place because of the Wanna Mill. So you're going to see this throughout the entire comprehensive plan and all the goals, where they made very general policies, but then they also had to address existing conditions on the ground.
Okay.
Jen, one of the things that we talked about last time is that this entire huge goal 5 only has one goal at the very beginning, and that it specifically focuses on mineral extraction, and then there are just gobs and gobs of policies. So I'm thinking that here we are on wetlands, and again, we do not have a goal. So I'm wondering if anybody gave any thought to writing a goal for wetlands policies, or if we could start there, if we should start there.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. The overall goal for goal 5, the only one that there is to protect and ensure appropriate use of mineral and aggregate resources of the county. Oh, so that is just about mineral aggregate resources. So yeah, to start with something like that, but around wetlands.
And I can take a stab at it unless somebody else has something they want to throw out.
Go for it, Cheryl.
The policy as written, I think, is general enough to almost be a goal, certainly to be a goal for a starting place. So the policy is the county will protect identified significant freshwater wetlands for which no conflicting uses have been identified from compatible uses. So I'm going to suggest two things. One is that we use part of that wording for the goal, and I would like to eliminate for which no conflicting uses have been identified. So the first sentence in the goal would read, the county will protect identified significant freshwater wetlands from incompatible uses. And then what I would like to add to that wording that I really liked, that was in the background materials that got sent to us, and I'm on the second page of those background materials. About halfway down the page, it begins to talk about wetlands in Oregon, and it says, Oregon's wetlands and their ecosystems are a highly diverse resource that reflects the extreme physical and biological variability of the state. Streamside wetlands in the Coast Range provide food and shelter to threatened juvenile salmon and trout. Additional examples of wetland functions and the services they provide, and there's a short list. I really like the wording on that. And again, my sense is, and I'm not a land use person or a writer or a lawyer or any of these, but my sense is that this wording is general enough that it can be included in the goal. So my suggestion is that the second sentence in our goal for wetlands would be, actually the second and the third, would be these two sentences off of here. Oregon's wetlands and their ecosystem are a highly diverse resource that reflects the extreme physical and biological viability of the state. Streamside wetlands in the Coast Range provide food and shelter to threatened juvenile salmon and trout. So that's my suggestion for our goal for wetlands.
I like it. I think that's great.
Yeah, I agree. It sounds good to me.
Okay, just one item. So if you've had a chance to read through Goal 5 administrative rule, there's a system or a process that everyone would go through, every jurisdiction would go through when they're identifying these resources. And so when it says in policy 1, for which no conflicting uses have been identified, that language is in there very specifically, because as part of this evaluation that a jurisdiction does, they look to see if there are existing or conceivable conflicting uses that could impact it. And so, for example, you may have an existing home that's already there, or in the case of Delmore Loop, you had cranberry bogs, which conflicted with the pristine nature of the wetland. So you just have to remember, and I have a little bit of concern in the goal about taking that language out because it is there for a very specific reason.
Thank you, Gail, because like I said, I'm not a land use person, so I don't know this. So just thinking logically, to me, it says that we would protect significant freshwater wetlands unless there's a conflicting use. Well, it seems to me that we want to protect them when there is a conflicting use. We wouldn't need to protect them if there's no conflicting use. So that's where I was coming from. That's my thoughts. Well, somebody else wants to build a 10-story skyscraper on there, and that's a conflicting use. Therefore, we can't protect it for wetlands. But
it's still, I mean, it's still within like the zoning. I think partially what it's just meaning is like if there is already kind of like nodding to the historical nature of what it, like we couldn't, like this goal wouldn't have been able to like override existing land use is what I'm assuming that it's like meaning to, like that it's already existed. Like it's more of a like cover that has, that's how I'm reading it more, because like there's still zoning of like, regulations that would probably not let a high rise be put in the wetlands. But I think from what I'm reading, and Gail can correct me, it seems like it's more of a like acknowledging that when this is going into place that it can't override any like existing conflicting use.
Maybe instead of identified, the language could be changed to for which no conflicting uses are already in place, or something to indicate that differentiation between like there's already a cranberry bog here, we're not going to like retroactively make that illegal, but if something is pristine wetlands right now, maybe that shouldn't become a business in the future if it contradicts this goal. I don't know.
Yes, Kelly, that gets where I'm going. Gail, does that fit with what you think is happening there?
I think it does. The other part that we probably want to clarify is, so under policy 1, when we talk about identified significant freshwater wetlands, those are the wetlands that are listed in goal 5 and that were identified in that report by Duncan Thomas. And there was a link to that report sent to you for the whole report, and also excerpts from it are taken out and put into the comp plan that was in your agenda package. So we need to figure out how we're going to define what are identified significant freshwater wetlands.
Gail, I don't think I followed that. Aren't they already identified? Aren't they listed?
We have the ones that are listed that were identified in 1982 in the Duncan Thomas report. So that report, so the 6, let me pull the map up here, hold on. Oh, I moved it, hold on. So of the 9 wetland sites that are identified in the goal 5 of the comprehensive plan, there were actually several more that were identified in the Duncan Thomas report, but the Duncan Thomas report did not, it may not list every single wetland in the entire county, and it is also 38 years old. Wetland boundaries change, wetlands go away, they move, they mutate, they grow, they shrink. So it's a little bit out of date. So, if you're talking about the ones that are identified right now in the comp plan, that's that's easily defined. That's very clear. If you're talking about other areas that aren't included in the comprehensive plan right now, then that would be something different that you'd want to clarify how those will be determined.
In the giant binder that we got, like back when we were still meeting in person, there's the background report in there that I was looking at, and on page 3 of it, it's talking about wetland inventories and how like there's like a national wetland inventory that doesn't actually include most of the wetlands in our county, and that DSL staff have been working to complete a statewide wetland inventory that was supposed to be approved in late 2019, is what this says. I wonder if there's been an update on that, or if like there is a statewide wetland inventory that we could reference.
Yeah, so in your agenda package, there was an update provided about the status of the statewide wetland report for this meeting.
Okay.
So they did complete it and it did get approved. And so that's what you're seeing right now on the screen are the statewide wetland inventory lands. Those lands are based off of, or those wetland identifications were based off of a combination of soil types, local wetland inventory information when it was available, and also information from the previous national wetland inventory site, national wetland inventory, sorry. So let me show you here. Okay, so
And
these would be the statewide wetlands that have been identified now. Previously, let's see here. My map is froze. There we go. These are the national wetland inventory maps.
So it's a bit more land that's included in the statewide inventory.
Let's see here. It's actually, in some places it's a little bit less, and some places it's a little bit more.
Yeah.
So we'll see if this is where we need to be going. So rather than just say that the county will protect identified significant freshwater wetlands, perhaps we need to say the county will protect significant freshwater wetlands as identified by the most current state and national surveys. Is that getting us where you think we should go to protect the wetlands?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good solid start, especially if we include the language about existing conflicting uses. And then, of course, at some point, not necessarily as part of this goal, but what you need to think about then is what would those protections consist of? What do we do if it renders somebody's property completely useless? You know, how do we handle situations where we may be taking someone's property rights? Because we do have to be mindful of that as well.
Okay, I would like to amend my proposal. My proposal for the goal, we can leave in for which no conflicting uses have been identified that I previously took out. And just for the sake of discussion, just so we can keep moving forward, so the county will protect significant freshwater wetlands as identified, I'm making this up, in the most current state and national, what are they called, surveys?
I have it up on the screen, Cheryl, if you want to.
Inventories, yeah.
Good. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, that looks good. Okay. is there separate language in the goals about riparian corridors? Or wetlands and riparian corridors are all one thing, right? Let's see anything separate.
Yes. So riparian corridors and wetlands are considered two separate resource inventories under statewide planning goal 5. So the current comprehensive plan did not have any policies addressing riparian corridors.
Okay, thank you.
Dan, I'm thinking that since we just scooped policy 1 and made it our goal, that on our chart now, where it says to retain the goal, yes or no, behind policy 1, we get to write in no.
Yeah, I don't think we need to write, yeah, all of it again as a policy.
And then, Gail, what do we know about gravel extraction in wetland site 6?
Yeah, that one I have not researched the gravel extraction, whether that's still going on yet or not. We're looking at the map. I looked only at the ownership question at this point.
Gail, is that Knife River?
I think it's a little bit too far for Knife River.
Okay.
And
I think
when they came in with their expansion that Ian worked on a year or two ago, I don't think that issue came up. Yeah, because the area we're looking at is up here.
you're right. Yeah, that's more south. Okay.
Yeah. So that one I would have to do a little bit more research on. If it's still an active site, then you would want to retain it.
And then policy 3 is the one that has all of those little detailed ones for to protect the white-tailed deer habitat. Gail, what are your thoughts on that?
When you say what are my thoughts, are you asking me if you should keep the goal or revise it?
Yeah, is it still needed as written?
Well, my understanding of why this language was specifically put into the comprehensive plan was to because of the Wanna Mill area and the mill site. We just earlier this afternoon we had Clatsop Plains Citizen Advisory Committee, and they felt that these policies, odd as they are, should apply to all the wetlands everywhere. I don't know if that means that even in Clatsop Plains where Highway 30 and there no railroad right of way is, if those still need to apply. They were not quite clear on that. Like I said, you're going to find this type of language everywhere in the plan where you go from very broad policies to very site-specific policies. The concern I would have about taking it out is that the mill is still in operation. And, you know, they were very clear policies about where development should be located. And so if there were any potential expansion and these policies didn't exist, then that may have an impact on the mill.
And just reading this, my gut sense is that whoever wrote this wanted to protect the wetlands and the natural areas as much as possible. So my gut is to keep this in. And I know that there's a proposed development happening in Westport now, and I don't know enough details about that. But there's, oh, I hate to, well, actually, Gail, you probably know better. There's new development there at the, in the neighborhood of where the dock is for the ferry. And my dim memory is that there's water mains going under the road there, and there's just a lot of proposed development there around some of the areas that are described here.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a moment. So what is happening out in Westport is not new development as I think you might be thinking of new development, Cheryl. So what is happening is Teven Brothers has had some funding. They received funding from the state. They have a site that has been used on and off for probably 20 or 30 years. Tori actually worked on this case where they are reestablishing the rock storage, and I believe, Tori, refresh my memory, was a barge that they're doing out there, or trucks coming in and then they're barging the rock out, or maybe it's the other way around. As part of that, because of the heavy trucks now that are going to be using the roads down in Westport, there's road improvements that have to be made. And the reason the water mains are going in is not because someone's coming in to build apartments or a shopping mall or anything like that. It's because the water mains are very old and brittle, and the truck traffic, they can't handle the truck traffic. And since the county is going to have to address the roadway issue, it doesn't make sense to handle the paving and the surface of the roadway only to leave the brittle old water mains in place. So that's what's happening there. Also, there have been some dredging activities associated with the ferry dock itself. And then there is, just to the east of that, is the park improvements that the county is doing, including the boat ramp and the construction of a public restroom facility for the park. And then there will be probably some upgrades and equipment changes to the Westport sewer facility there, which is just by the park as well. So it's not a new development as we would think of something that's happening in Warrenton, but I guess you could, technically it is new development. So. And Tori, did you want to add anything about Teven? I probably goofed up their application incredibly.
No, I think you got the point across. Yeah. There is quite a bit of dredging. It's going on in the historic dredging prism. So it's, where everything that they're proposing to do, they've done before, just with more modern equipment and a little more durable, perhaps.
And Tori, since you know that area better, do any of these specifics in policy 3 relate to that land also?
I'm pulling it back up. One sec.
Okay. My thoughts are that of all of the identified wetlands in Clatsop County, there's only one in our area, in our northeast area. So I'm thinking that it's worth a little bit of our time and energy to sort of sort through this and figure out what is and is not happening there. This is the only one that we are specifically responsible for. And I hate to even say it, but I would almost like a field trip down there to see, number one, the things that are happening with the Teven plan, and number two, these areas that are specifically delineated out here in policy 3 A through D. None of us need more meetings or more time away from home, but I would just throw that out there.
Okay, so this, if you can see the map on the screen, this squiggly line here, that's Driscoll Slough. Okay, and that gives you an idea. The plant is over here. I'm not sure what that is. I think this is part of Georgia Pacific property. So this is all Georgia Pacific property here, and the slough runs through the middle of it. And then the ferry ramp is down over here. Right here. And then this is where the park is going. This is the Teven site. Maybe this is Teven site. Yeah, Teven. So they historically, meaning like 20, 30 years ago, had conditional use approval to establish their rock storage place here. And it's been used on and off over the years, but now they are going to be doing a combination of barge traffic and truck traffic. And that's why the improvements are needed to Westport Ferry Road, and there's also going to be improvements to Old Milltown Road as well. And then the park is up here, and this is the sewer plant. And here's the slough.
Unfortunately, on mine, Gail, I can see the map, but I can't see any movements or anything that you're pointing to. And I think that's just because the load on mine is so slow. But thank you for the map. Thank you for the explanation.
Okay, so can you see the circle? No, you probably can't see the circle either. Okay, I'll stop.
I have no circle.
So the policy is just relating to land adjacent to Driscoll Slough, right? Like, because it says, am I reading that right? Like directly adjacent to the Driscoll Slough, or?
I think that,
B is, but policy 3 is all of Wetland Site 7.
Right.
Which, yeah.
It's like, it mentions that it's land adjacent to Driscoll, like it's concentrated to the slough, right?
yes, it's concentrated to the land adjacent to Driscoll Slough.
At this point in time, then I am in favor of leaving policy 3 as written, even though it's very specific, but I'm thinking that we leave it.
Do you know anything about it mentions a bridge being built?
Yeah, so where's the map? So what I am suspecting, I don't have, didn't find any specific information about this, but let's see here. Oh, here. All right, so can you see the property lines here? Let me turn the photo off. I suspect at one point there may have been an intent to put a bridge. You can see this rectangular piece that kind of pokes into the slough. That's what I suspect was the reference, but I don't have anything to back that up. That's purely supposition on my part.
And I'm reading that as like to help with deer movement. Is that how other people are reading that too? I'm kind of confused about that whole section.
Which policy specifically are you looking at, Kelly?
Oh, just in that right around the bridge. I'm just like, it's saying that it's the construction of the bridge is necessary to accomplish the project. I'm like slightly confused about what the project that it's referring to.
The construction of a bridge shall be the minimum necessary to accomplish the project. I think they're just saying like, don't build a huge bridge that's gonna like wipe out the slough upriver of the bridge. That's what I was how I was reading it.
Yeah, the wording is just a little confusing to me.
Would you have a recommendation, Kelly, about how to clarify that language?
Not really, because I don't really understand the original intent. I think that's what I'm just like trying to see if anyone has any other ideas about the original intent. I find it really confusing. Just in regards to the bridge part. But I totally, yeah, I can see what you're saying, Jen. I just like, it's just not very clear to me.
Right. Well, I mean, the first sentence in this part B is that everything shall be carried on in a way that will minimize the alteration of the vegetation and all of that. It seems a little bit redundant to specify that in case there's a bridge that gets built, it also should follow those rules. Like maybe we could just get rid of the sentence about the bridge. I was also wondering if this would be the right place, probably not, but to add in some more language about watersheds. In some of the background information that I think Tori emailed out a while ago, there was like a bunch of backgrounds on watersheds, and it talked about how goal 5 is an opportunity to like write more about it, because right now there's not much about watersheds in goal 5. Gail?
Yeah, so there is actually a separate inventory resource that we're required to do, or resource inventory that we're required to do for specifically 2 watersheds. So that will be coming up at a future meeting. Just to give you kind of a heads up, we will probably be taking more than 3 months to work our way through goal 5, just because there's so much to handle. What we're looking at for next month would be wildlife habitat, federal wild and scenic rivers, and state scenic waterways. And none of the, so we do have a scenic waterway, state scenic waterway, but we do not have any federal wild or scenic rivers. So we don't really need to, it'll be an easy inventory, and I don't think you have to write any policies for it. But we will be having to write policies for wildlife habitat and state scenic waterways, because we did have one now just designated down on the lower portion of the Nehalem. So, and then following that, sorry to go back, then the one after that would be groundwater resources, which would be the appropriate place to address watersheds.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Gail, is there, what Jen brought up earlier, is there work that we need to be doing on riparian areas?
Yes, so because there are no policies right now in goal 5 addressing riparian corridors, and that's one of the required resources that we're supposed to inventory, then we need to identify what riparian corridors we're looking to address in goal 5, and then what corresponding policies would go along with that. So riparian corridors would include both water and riparian areas and fish habitat.
And is that, I mean, isn't that just all of the land surrounding the wetlands, or would it include? I guess I'm unclear about what you mean that we need to inventory it. It seems like it's defined already.
Okay, so this is from the Goal 5 administrative role, and it deals with riparian corridors. This was included in your agenda package for today. So it does have definitions in here about what is a riparian area, which is the area adjacent to a river, lake, or stream that consists of the area of transition from an aquatic ecosystem to a terrestrial ecosystem. A riparian corridor is a Goal 5 resource that includes the water areas, fish habitat, adjacent riparian areas, and wetlands within the riparian area boundary.
Okay.
So the other thought to keep in mind is that when we talk about wetlands and water areas, there's actually 3 different goals in the comprehensive plan that deal especially specifically with wetlands. So you've got goal 16, which deals specifically with wetlands associated with the estuary. You have goal 17, which deals with wetland and wetland areas that are specifically coastal shoreland areas. And then you've got goal 5, which are these freshwater wetlands that were identified back in 1982. So those are kind of the breakdown of how we look at wetlands in the comprehensive plan. They're identified in 3 different categories. So what we're looking at here in goal 5 is not going to be necessarily the wetlands that are already included in goal 16. And I've got goal 16 up here. If you give me a minute.
So as far as like the first question you were saying, like how to identify the riparian corridors, I mean, is defining them like with some of those definitions acceptable, or does it need to be more of like a survey style like the other, like the wetlands?
It wants to be, you want to identify it in a way that we can put it on a map so we know what area we're talking about.
Okay.
So just like we have, these maps are very vague and they were hand drawn. But yeah, we want to be able to map it. So this is Duncan Thomas here. Yeah. All right, never mind. Eastern County 55. Hold on, I'm trying to get to the maps related to yours. And apparently there is no map. So there is no map. So. So I guess the other option that you have, if you're not prepared to list specific sites today, is if you want to start thinking about general riparian corridor policies, that might be something that the committee could work on.
Gail, I'm trying to understand wetlands and riparian corridors. So I'm going to ask a question and hopefully not take us down into the weeds or out into the stars. For instance, Brownsmead. Brownsmead is absolutely wetlands. A lot of the, I mean, we have tide gates everywhere in Brownsmead, and a lot of the farmland is actually below tide level. But yet, Brownsmead doesn't show up as an identified wetland area on the map. I mean, there's only, you know, whatever it is, 6 of them in the county, and Brownsmead isn't there. And so now I'm thinking about riparian areas. So for instance, Nat Creek, which snakes its way through Brownsmead and then feeds directly into the Columbia River, has wetlands leading up to it and is certainly part of fish habitat. And so it seems to me that everything around Nat Creek sliding through Brownsmead would be riparian. Am I out in left field? Do I not understand this?
I am probably not capable of answering that question right now, Cheryl, simply because I myself don't have enough natural history knowledge or biological knowledge to answer that. What we might be able to do is let me talk to Crest and see if we can get them in to give us some information on that and how we would differentiate.
I think that's a good idea. Yes, Crest is, in my experience in the past years, is very knowledgeable on all this stuff. I think they're a good resource. Thank you.
Yeah, because my understanding of riparian is anything that's next to like a lake or a river. So it seems like you could just draw circles around all of the lakes and the rivers on the map, but maybe it's not that simple. So. I think that the language, like the policies around the riparian areas would be similar to the wetlands, that we should protect and preserve them and not allow what is incompatible uses.
All right, does someone want to take a stab at some preliminary language? Just general preliminary language?
Ellie, can you give it a go?
I'm not a good on the spot person. Let me.
Yeah, okay, so you have the county shall encourage the protection of riparian corridors. That's what we're calling them. Recognizing that they support fish and wildlife habitat and the health of the communities. Yeah. And I don't know anything about the legal language in the wetlands thing. They use the phrase the incompatible uses. Maybe that's something that has some kind of like more weight than the words that I used. I don't know. Gail, can you advise on that?
Yeah, so if you go back to your packet materials for today, under the Goal 5 administrative rule, I know I passed it as we were looking for riparian. Here we go. This is the procedure I was talking about, the ESEE, where it looks at, and I always forget what the letters all stand for. It's environmental or economic, social, environmental, and energy consequences. And I believe this is where that, if no uses conflict with a significant resource site, acknowledged policies and land use regulations may be considered sufficient to protect the resource site. So this is number 2A. And it's out of Oregon Administrative Rules, Chapter 660, Division 23, Section 0040. So this is the process that we go through when we've identified resources that need to be protected. And then if something comes in that should conflict with that, this is the go-to language that you use to evaluate. So, and I know it's boring reading, but I know at the last meeting, everybody, we talked about it the Goal 5 administrative rule, and everybody wanted to know exactly, what was in it. So that's why we provided that language for you today.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful. I'm not aware of any uses at this time that conflict with the riparian corridors, but I'm sure that there are some. And maybe that's something Crest could help us with, or
Yeah, I'll reach out to Crest and bring back, see if they can provide us with some clarification about how this is defined on the ground and examples from the county where of places that would be considered riparian corridors.
okay.
Okay. And I'm going to be turning the meeting over to Tori at this point. I'm going to the Resiliency Project meeting at 5:30, so I've got to get ready for that one. But Tori, I'll leave you in good hands with Tori, and she'll be making notes about any information that we need to bring back to you at the next meeting. So.
Okay, thank you, Gail.
Yeah, you're welcome. Everybody have a good night.
You too.
Thank you, Gail. Tori, this is Cheryl. How might we go about identifying additional wetland areas or riparian corridors, either of them? Well, I guess for riparian, we're okay because we have the state survey and the federal survey, but how would we identify riparian?
Well, I mean, Jennifer kind of hit it on the head. Like, do we just circle all the rivers? But so, and that's also going to be hard because do we want to protect every riparian area or a significant one like we're talking about with wetlands? Because you can look at places like, what's it called? Like the sloughs, they've been heavily farmed. So is that a significant riparian area? Yes or no? So I think that is something we'll need to maybe defer to an expert on. What do you all think?
I just pulled up something on riparian corridors in like the Oregon Public Law website. It has like quite a little, it's like rule 660-023-0090, and it has like a pretty comprehensive, like way more detailed definition of what they consider riparian, which I'm just like kind of breezing through as you guys are talking. So that's maybe one place to, I can copy and send that link out that I just found. But it goes a little bit more into detail about what they consider riparian corridors.
Oh yeah, I think that's actually what Gail was just showing us. That's in our background materials already.
Okay. Yeah. I couldn't find it through there, but I got it. Yeah. But it goes into, I don't know if it like goes, I don't know. I understand that like the idea of the mapping, but I feel like this one is like, it's going to be a bit of a detailed map with how specific it seems to be. I don't know what the like,
I mean, the rule in the Oregon law thing that you were just talking about has I mean, it says it's the boundary 75 feet from streams that flow greater than 1,000 cubic feet and 50 feet away from streams that flow less than 1,000 cubic feet. I mean, that's real. It is specific.
Right, it's really specific. So it's like, I mean, I wonder, like, would we have to like adopt, or would we adopt all of those specific like examples, or would we like physically map it out? You know, like I don't, if it's that specific, it seems kind of like a mapping nightmare, but it's also, it seems very like, I don't know. I feel kind of like there's just
right.
Or
like if it's that specific, isn't it already on a GIS map somewhere?
right.
Yeah, I'm just looking and I'm getting a lot of 404 pages not found. So, I mean, I think if there must already be some sort of inventory for that. There are inventories from ODFW for fish bearing streams, all of that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, let's see what's out there for free. That, you know, the work's already been done. And then then maybe we'll talk to Crest. But yeah.
Right.
Well, if the goal is like you talked about, Jen, mirrors a little bit more the wetlands goal that we just came up with, is there any other like, policies that people like? Is there anything not included in that that anyone feels is important to add? You know?
I feel like maybe something about like people's drinking water, if that hasn't been mentioned somewhere else already. But like, it's important that we keep these areas pristine if they're, particularly if they're the source of drinking water.
Yeah, I think that maybe goes more into the watersheds than the wetlands, but probably is.
Okay, that's
I mean,
fine. If it's covered somewhere else.
Water's connected, so.
Yeah, I know that the Southwest Coastal Group had requested an actual GIS layer on our web maps tool showing all of the different drinking watersheds. So I think that that's something that we are looking to work on. I don't know when.
Cool.
But yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure what other, I mean, you mentioned that there's a lot of farming along the sloughs, and there's also like a lot of houseboats and fishing and stuff that happens in some of the wetland areas. So I'm not sure. I mean, we can't make the policy say that we can't have those things there anymore. But I think limiting like more new uses of things, which is what we'd already talked about when wetlands, seems like the right approach still for this policy.
So do we want to say something about protecting existing uses while also, you know, protecting riparian areas from new conflicting uses? Is that something we want to say?
Yes. Thank you,
Okay.
Joy.
Yeah, does anyone want to take a stab at it?
Well, I think also like with the wetlands one where Cheryl added some of that language of like why the wetlands are important, maybe doing something similar with the riparian, just throwing a couple sentences about why we want to protect them at all, you know, would be smart.
And then
And I think as far as that, we don't have like an easy sentence like we did for the wetlands one, but something along the lines of acknowledging the like shading and cooling of riparian areas on water, and then it being a good source for like shelter and food for animals and fish, or something along the lines of like multiple the uses of a riparian area.
That sounds good, Kelly.
Yep. Something like that. Someone help me out, finish the sentence. Maybe acknowledge them as a.
I think that's going the direction we want to go. Good.
Yeah.
It's okay to repeat ourselves.
No, I'm just trying to like read it. I mean, I think something like the multiple biological and ecological functions of the riparian corridors, including like shade, habitat, food sources,
okay.
like
get specific.
Just like not super specific, but like a little bit. You could even say including, but not limited to. I don't want to like limit any functions.
We use that word. We use that a lot in planning. Shelter of. Does that sparkle with everybody? I'm going to take out the last sentence because it's redundant.
Yeah, I think it's a good start for sure.
That sounds great.
Should I make this font bigger? Is everyone able to read that as I type?
Bigger would be better for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm squinting a lot. Yeah,
no
that's helpful.
problem. There. Okay.
That sentence where you start the multiple biological and ecological functions, maybe just say like that there's no verb in that sentence, so maybe just like the county values riparian corridors for the multiple biological and ecological functions.
I honestly wasn't reading as I was typing.
No, you're doing great.
Is that better?
That's great, yeah. Yeah. I'm looking at the action items for our meeting today. I think we've pretty much covered them except for like identifying any issues regarding riparian corridors that should be addressed in the comprehensive plan, but I think we need more guidance on that from Crest or from somebody else.
From somebody, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that that's something that can also maybe be an action item for staff to, for future work.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like how Ian and I sent out stuff for the watersheds and whatnot.
Right. So, does anybody have anything else they want to say or include in the wetlands and riparian corridors conversation today?
Nope, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. Is there any other public comment?
Jen, I'm
Then the
not
next-
public, but this is not specific to riparian or to the habitat things, but I appreciate that this great big goal 5 that was like overwhelming last month and had one goal and a million little specific policies, and it didn't make any sense and it wasn't going anywhere, that y'all broke it down into bite-sized pieces for us and then send us information to help us get there. So thank you for the work that staff is doing on this.
Great. The next thing on our agenda is to establish a regular meeting date and time. Does this Thursday afternoons are going to be pretty good for me for the foreseeable future? Is this a good time for other people also?
This is like the second Thursday of the month. We could kind of keep
Mhm.
that.
Sounds good
And
to
this
me.
time works well for me as well.
Yeah, the 4 o'clock is perfect for me.
Yeah, I'm a little like, I don't know, like it's at the end of my work day, so sometimes I've been to multiple online meetings at this point, but it works for me. It's just I think my brain sometimes is a little fried, which as long as
For sure.
I can still contribute what I can, but just want to be honest about that.
Cool. Well, I would propose making the second Thursday at 4 o'clock a regular meeting date and time.
That would be great. We could put it on the calendar ahead of time rather than doing the little, figure out the schedule each time. And then we can sort of schedule around it. And this is also the week ahead of the countywide meeting. And so it's really nice for me to be able to go next week to the countywide and to tell them what we specifically talked about in our area. So we're just 1 week ahead of time, and that folds into it very nicely.
So the next one would be the September 10th. Am I reading my calendar correctly?
Yes, that's what I'm seeing too, Kelly.
That's what I'm seeing.
Okay, great.
Cool, you guys. Then I think we can adjourn the meeting. Is that right, Troy? Are we good to go?
Yes. Yeah, you can. Okay, and there is also the meeting at 5:30 tonight if anyone's interested about the what's it called? Resiliency project. Let me pull up.
Are they gonna, is that where they're talking about making pipeline like a real road?
Yeah, it is.
Cool.
Where is it?
I don't know if you know this, but is there any opposition to that? Like, I mean, I think that's a good idea, but I don't know if I
Or is
want to
it
go to
just a
a
funding
meeting.
issue?
Yes. Here we go. Here we go. So it's up on the county website, and you can just click through, and it should be starting pretty soon. Yeah, I just think a lot of the neighbors are concerned about the pipeline just being in their backyard, which was historically just woods. So now it'll be a road. So anyway, enjoy if you want to.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you September 10th.
Thank you.